go unnoticed at first, and yet it is an integral part of the Disney parks experience. Background music, played across Disneyland Paris, has the unique ability to immerse guests in a world of fantasy. It weaves through every land, every queue, every street, quietly guiding the emotions of those who walk by. Above all, Walt Disney and his Imagineers were filmmakers, and just like a great film, Disneyland was imagined with a story, a setting, characters, and of course, a soundtrack. For them, it wasn't just about building attractions, it was about building a complete, living scene. Each themed land is like a chapter in a larger story, and the background music, it brings that story to life. In Main Street, USA, turn-of-the-century tunes instantly transport guests to a nostalgic small town. In Frontierland, the twang of banjos and rustic melodies set the stage for adventure in the Wild West. In Adventureland, the rhythm changes. Exotic, mysterious, full of wonder. And in Discoveryland, orchestral scores filled with futuristic tones echo the dreams of tomorrow. Even cues are part of the magic. The music there isn't just for waiting. It builds anticipation, sets the mood, and sometimes tells part of the story before the ride even begins. This attention to detail is no accident. It's part of what makes Disneyland Paris not just a park, but a place where reality gently fades and imagination takes over. So next time you visit, take a moment to listen, not just to the laughter or the excitement, but to the music all around you. It may be in the background, but it's always center stage in the magic. Imagineers were meticulous about creating a special soundtrack, traditionally referred to as BGM, or background music, which plays an instrumental role in theming. From the very beginning, music was central to the atmosphere of Disneyland. In fact, early on, this music was often played live by several bands stationed throughout the park. But even then, beyond the attractions, guests could already hear pre-recorded soundtracks in certain areas. For instance, walking through Sleeping Beauty Castle and into Fantasyland, guests would be greeted by the gentle melody of When You Wish Upon a Star, a classic musical invitation to dream. At the entrance to Frontierland, an old banjo tune welcomed visitors, while the sound of indigenous drums and jungle rhythms hinted at the adventures waiting in Adventureland. These loops were short, often just a few minutes long, and played continuously. This idea was inspired by Muzak, a form of background music first heard in American stores as early as 1934. In the early 1960s, a new step was taken. A few outdoor attractions and queue areas began receiving their own dedicated background music. One key figure behind this evolution was American composer Buddy Baker, best known for composing Grim Grinning Ghosts. At Snow White Grotto, he reimagined I'm Wishing from the 1937 film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, adding delicate bell sounds to create a peaceful, magical ambiance near the wishing well. Some loops even changed depending on the time of day or the time of year. At the Swiss Family Treehouse, for example, guests would normally hear Baker's Swiska Polka from Swiss Family Robinson, released in 1960. But during the Christmas season, the organ would instead play classic holiday carols. This tradition still continues today. On Main Street, USA, special background music can be heard during the end-of-year celebrations, blending the familiar charm of turn-of-the-century tunes with the spirit of the holidays. BGM in Disney parks does more than fill silence. It brings the story to life. It supports the theme. And, perhaps most importantly, it makes the magic feel real. As time went on, background music expanded across the park, beginning with Main Street, USA. But this expansion raised an important question: the question of theming. Just like in a film, music in the park is critical to keeping the story consistent. It sets the mood, defines the setting, and helps guests feel truly immersed in the world around them. Surprisingly, the very first tracks played on Main Street didn't exactly match the era. Guests strolling down the street in the early days might have heard popular hits from the 1960s, including Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel. These songs were chosen not for historical accuracy, but for their emotional impact. That would soon change. In 1970, longtime radio host Jack Wagner, who was also the official voice of Disneyland Resort for many years,
Welcome to the Magic Kingdom of Disneyland.
Offered to create a new soundtrack that matched the theming of the land. He took inspiration from Disney music of the time, especially arrangements designed for marching bands. The result was a carefully curated loop that captured the spirit of the early 1900s, the same period Main Street is meant to represent. His work didn't go unnoticed. Disney soon entrusted Jack Wagner with designing background music for more than 40 different areas across both Disneyland Resort and Walt Disney World Resort. Many of these loops remain iconic to this day, and they continue to inspire Imagineers. In fact, the background music created for Disneyland Paris was deeply influenced by Wagner's original loops. And in a beautiful full-circle moment, some of the music created for Disneyland Paris eventually made its way back to the parks in the United States. At Disneyland Paris, background music is used in the same way it would be in a film. It sets the scene, enhances the mood, and adds depth to the story. But here, there's one big difference. The story isn't told by a director. It's created by the guests themselves. With every step, every choice, and every adventure, they become the stars of their own Disney story. And the music? It's there to guide them, every step of the way. Just like there are different types of music in films, there are various kinds of background music in the Disney parks. Some are designed to introduce a story and transport guests to far-off places or forgotten times. This is done through melodies, harmonies, and instruments that reflect a specific period or culture. In the world of film, this technique is used in The Princess and the Frog and Lady and the Tramp. Both feature music inspired by the rich sound of New Orleans jazz, evoking the spirit of the 1910s and 1920s. On Main Street, guests can hear ragtime, a joyful, syncopated style that was hugely popular around the turn of the century. Musical pieces by legends like Scott Joplin and Arthur Pryor are played alongside modern scores, such as music from Pollyanna and Up, carefully rearranged to match the era and feel of the land. Music also helps us travel across the world, not just through place, but through sound. In Mulan, traditional Chinese instruments guide us to Imperial China. In Brave, the music echoes with the soul of Scotland. At Disneyland Paris, this same approach is used in Adventureland. Outside the Hakuna Matata restaurant, African percussion sets the rhythm. Near Adventureland Bazaar, Middle Eastern melodies drift through the air, performed by traditional ensembles. Other times, music is used to perfectly match the action, in sync with what's happening on screen. In Toy Story 2, when Buzz Lightyear leaps between platforms in Zurg's lair, the moment is elevated by the epic theme from 2001, A Space Odyssey. And in The Incredibles, composer Michael Giacchino channels the style of classic James Bond scores to build tension and excitement. This connection between film and theme park continues at Walt Disney Studios Park. At Place des Frères Lumière, guests hear dozens of famous film scores. Over in Toon Studio, music from animated classics brings the land to life. In Frontierland, sweeping Western themes like the Magnificent Seven instantly transport us to the rugged Wild West. Many film scores are completely original, created specifically for the story they tell. That's also the case in Discoveryland at Disneyland Paris. There, the music was composed especially for the land by pianist and composer David Tolley. His work captures the sense of wonder, curiosity, and bold imagination that defines Discoveryland, a soundtrack to dreams of the future. In every land, in every story, background music does more than just set the mood. It carries us across time. It guides our emotions. And it reminds us that in Disney parks, the soundtrack is always playing, whether we notice it or not.
Under the sea, under the sea, nothing is gonna take it from me. I'm gonna show you what's gonna be. Out in the sun, just take away. Walking in things, full time of joy. Under the sea.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to stay updated with more content like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thanks for your support.
Everybody dance out loud.